Don't forget yourself. Value you. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you looked in the mirror? Not to fix your hair, not to check your makeup, but to see yourself, to really truly see the person behind the eyes, not the roles you play, not the expectations you carry. Just you. We live in a world that praises sacrifice. We're taught to give, to show up, to be there for everyone. Be a good friend, a supportive sibling, a perfect partner. But somewhere along the way, many of us learn to be everything to everyone except ourselves. And I want to tell you today, you are not selfish for choosing yourself. You are sacred. You are not arrogant for valuing yourself. You are awake. There is nothing noble about shrinking to make others feel tall. There is nothing kind about silencing your voice so others can speak over it. And there is nothing real about a version of you that exists only to please. I've been there. Maybe you have too, bending so far for people that your spirit nearly snaps, measuring your worth by the opinions of others, giving so much love that you forget to keep any for yourself. But here's the truth. You teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. If you place yourself last, don't be surprised when others do too. So today I want to remind you, your time is valuable, your energy is precious, and your presence is a gift. You don't owe everyone access to your life. You don't need to explain your boundaries. And you certainly don't need to earn the right to love yourself because you were born worthy, worthy of respect, worthy of joy, worthy of peace, worthy of your own love. So stop waiting for someone else to validate what you already know in your soul. Don't forget yourself while trying to be unforgettable to others. Don't lose your reflection in someone else's mirror. And don't ever hand your value over to someone else's opinion. You are enough, just as you are. And that will always be your power. Let's talk about what it really means to choose yourself. Not in a surface level, #self-care kind of way, but in a way that shakes your roots, that makes you question every version of yourself that was created just to make other people comfortable. Choosing yourself isn't a decision you make once. It's a choice you keep making every single day, sometimes every hour, every minute, because life will give you endless chances to betray yourself for someone else's approval. It will tempt you to trade your peace for acceptance, your joy for belonging, and your voice for validation. And if you're not careful, you'll wake up one day surrounded by people, yet feel completely unseen. You'll have said yes so many times to things you didn't want that your soul forgets what no even sounds like. We're raised on silent rules that tell us our worth is tied to our usefulness. Be helpful, be agreeable, be flexible, be nice. And the moment we try to break those rules, the world gets uncomfortable. They call you difficult. They say you've changed. And yes, you have. Because you're finally choosing yourself after years of living as a watered-down version of who you were meant to be. That version of you, the one who says yes when she wants to say no, who smiles through pain, who stretches herself thin just to keep the peace, that version was never the real you. That was survival. That was programming. That was protection, but not truth. Choosing yourself means taking back the pen and writing your life story on your own terms. It means no longer measuring your value by how many people need you or how much you can do for others or how little you ask for in return. It means realizing that your time, your energy, your love, those are sacred. And not everyone is entitled to them. It's learning to pause before you agree to something and ask yourself, Do I really want this? Does this align with who I am, or am I doing it so I won't disappoint someone else? It's hard, it's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. So many of us have been conditioned to believe that love is earned through performance. Be good, be quiet, be useful, be there even when no one's there for you. We perform in relationships, in friendships, even in families. We shapeshift, we mold, we contort ourselves into the version of us that makes others happy. And then we wonder why we feel so empty, so lost, so disconnected. Because you cannot be whole when you're constantly editing parts of yourself to fit into other people's expectation. You were not born to be useful. You were born to be you, fully, boldly, without apology. Your worth is not a reward for your sacrifices. It's not a payment for your pain. It is not up for negotiation, and it does not increase or decrease depending on what others think of you. You do not need to overextend yourself to be lovable. You do not need to tolerate mistreatment just to feel needed. Love, real love, never demands that you lose yourself. If it does, it's not love, it's control, it's fear, it's dependence dressed up as affection. Choosing yourself is not about rejecting others. It's about refusing to reject yourself. It's about recognizing that your needs, your dreams, your desires, they matter, not more than anyone else's, but certainly not less. And when you finally stand up and say, I matter too, the people who were only in your life because you kept yourself small will start to fall away. That's okay. Let them. Not everyone is meant to walk with you into your healing. Not everyone is ready to meet the real you, the one who's no longer apologizing for existing. But the people who are meant for you, they'll celebrate the version of you who no longer sacrifices her spirit just to be liked. They'll honor your boundaries. They'll respect your voice. They'll love you without asking you to trade pieces of yourself to stay. And more importantly, you'll love you deeply, unconditionally, with a fierce tenderness that says, I will never abandon you again, not for anyone, not for anything. Choosing yourself is a revolution. It's a rebellion against every message that told you you had to earn your place. It's an act of coming home, and you deserve to be at home with yourself. You deserve to look in the mirror and recognize the person staring back. Not a mask, not a role, but a soul that is no longer willing to be overlooked. Not even by you. So the next time life hands you the choice between keeping the peace and keeping your truth, choose your truth. The next time you feel the pull to make someone else comfortable at the expense of your own comfort, choose your comfort. The next time you hear that old voice telling you be useful or you're not enough, pause, breathe, and remind yourself you are enough. Just by being, nothing more, nothing less. And that is a truth no one can take from you. Let me tell you something that might challenge everything you were raised to believe. Loving yourself is not selfish. It's not arrogant. It's not rude, cold, or unkind. It is necessary. It is sacred. And it is the foundation for everything good in your life. But somewhere along the way, especially for those of us who were raised to be givers, that if you say no, you're being difficult. That if you have boundaries, you're pushing people away. That if you dare to prioritize your peace, your space, your healing, then you are self-centered. And so many of us believed that. We internalized that guilt so deeply that it became our instinct to apologize for even existing. But here's the truth that no one told us loudly enough. There is nothing selfish about honoring your own soul. There is nothing wrong with saying, I matter too. In fact, that is where real love begins. Because love that demands you abandon yourself is not love at all. It's a performance. It's a transaction. And you were never meant to perform for love. You were meant to live in it. You know what real self-love looks like? It looks like waking up and choosing yourself, even on the days you don't feel worthy. It looks like feeding your body with kindness, speaking to yourself with gentleness, resting without guilt, and choosing environments that nourish your spirit instead of draining it. It looks like being honest about your needs, not just with others, but with yourself. Because how often do we pretend we're okay just to avoid being a burden? How often do we say yes when our whole body is screaming no, simply because we don't want to disappoint someone? That's not kindness. That's self-abandonment. That's what happens when we confuse love with obligation. Loving yourself means getting clear about what you can and cannot give. It means having boundaries, not walls, but healthy lines that protect your peace. It means you no longer accept relationships where love is conditional, where you're only appreciated when you're useful, agreeable, or silent. You stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop fighting for a seat at tables where your presence is barely tolerated. And most importantly, you stop negotiating your worth. Because worth isn't a bargain, it's a birthright. For so long, we've praised those who give until they break. We've glorified the friend who drops everything for everyone else, the partner who swallows their feelings to avoid conflict, the parent who runs on empty so no one else has to feel lack. But how long can we keep doing that before we run dry? Before we lose ourselves completely? You were not put here to run yourself into the ground just to keep other people standing. You were not put here to shrink so others could shine. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to say, I can't do that right now. You are allowed to have limits and still be loving. In fact, people who truly love you will respect those limits. They'll understand that your no is not a rejection of them. It's a reflection of your growth. And yes, some people will not like it when you start choosing yourself. They'll call you distant, selfish, hard. But their discomfort is not your responsibility. When you start valuing yourself, you disrupt the dynamics that were built on your self-sacrifice. And that disruption is necessary because you cannot build a life rooted in peace when your foundation is built on people-pleasing. There is a version of love that exists where you don't have to disappear to be accepted. There are relationships out there where you can be fully you, unfiltered, whole, flawed, and still be deeply loved. But you'll never find them if you're stuck in cycles that punish you for having boundaries. And that's why self-love isn't optional. It's essential. It's the filter that teaches you what to accept and what to walk away from. It's the voice that whispers, you deserve more, when you've convinced yourself that crumbs are enough. It's the strength that keeps you rooted when life tries to pull you back into the old patterns of overgiving and over-explaining. When you choose self-love, you're not choosing isolation. You're choosing truth. You're choosing alignment. You're choosing to live with integrity, where your insides match your outsides. And from that place of truth, you can give more freely, not from obligation, but from overflow. Because you've learned to fill your own cup first. And when your cup is full, giving doesn't deplete you, it nourishes you. So no, self-love is not selfish. It's the most honest, radical, and powerful decision you will ever make. Because once you love yourself, really love yourself, you stop settling. You stop begging. You stop betraying yourself for the sake of being liked. And that, my friend, is when everything begins to change. Let's take a moment and really sit with this truth. People treat you how you treat yourself. I know that can sound harsh, especially if you've been overlooked, taken for granted, or disrespected by people you've given your all to. But hear me when I say this. How you carry yourself, how you speak to yourself, how you show up for yourself, it becomes a mirror for how the world responds to you. If you constantly put yourself last, if you apologize for taking up space, if you dismiss your own needs just to keep everyone around you comfortable, people will follow your lead. They'll assume that your time is always available, that your voice doesn't need to be heard, that your feelings are optional. Why? Because you've taught them that. Not with cruelty, not with weakness, but with a quiet, consistent message that says, you matter more than I do. And the longer you do that, the more it becomes normal. Not just for them, but for you. You start to believe that being the strong one means being the silent one. That love always looks like sacrifice. That asking for anything makes you needy. You internalize the idea that your role is to serve, support, and show up, even if it costs you your joy, your health, your peace. What would happen if you walked into every room like your presence mattered? What if you answered the phone with the energy of someone who knows they deserve respect? What if your first thought in the morning wasn't, what does everyone else need from me today? But instead, what do I need today? The world takes its cues from you, and if you make a habit of self-neglect, others will too. But the moment you start treating yourself with the same care, love, and devotion you give so freely to everyone else, everything changes. The energy shifts, the conversations shift, the way people approach you shifts, because they can feel it. They can feel when you've stepped into your worth. People can sense when you've stopped needing their validation. When you walk in love with yourself, you stop begging for love from others. You no longer stay in rooms where you're barely tolerated because you've already made a home within your own heart. You don't chase anyone to recognize your value. You embody it. You live it. And people either rise to meet you there or they fall away. And that's not a loss. That's alignment. You see, we've been taught that humility means invisibility, that confidence is arrogance. But confidence, real, rooted confidence, isn't about being louder than anyone else. It's about being so deeply connected to your own worth that no one else gets to define it for you. It's about knowing that your value doesn't fluctuate based on how someone else feels about you on any given day. And the more you honor yourself, the less tolerance you'll have for dishonor. You won't justify bad behavior with, they're just going through something. You won't accept breadcrumbs and call it love. You won't explain away disrespect because you're scared of being alone. Because you'll know you've got you. You're not waiting for someone to choose you because you've already chosen yourself. But here's the part they don't tell you. Choosing yourself is not a one-time event. It's not a pretty quote or a self-care Sunday. It's a daily practice. It's looking at your own life and asking, am I showing people how to love me or how to use me? It's paying attention to how often you silence your own needs just to keep the peace. And then gently, slowly rewriting that story. And yes, there will be resistance from the outside and from within. People who've benefited from your self-neglect won't be thrilled about your boundaries. They'll question you, they'll guilt you, they'll call you difficult. But that's okay. Because as you keep choosing yourself, your energy will speak before you even open your mouth. It will say, I respect myself. I honor myself. and I won't settle for anything less. And eventually the people around you will shift. Some will rise, some will leave, and some new ones will show up. People who see you, who value you, who meet you with the same energy you finally learned to give yourself. But it all starts with you, with your reflection in the mirror, with the way you speak to your own soul, with the moment you stop waiting to be chosen and realize you've always been worthy. Not when you lose weight, not when you get the job, not when someone finally loves you the way you deserve, but now, right now. You've been told in so many ways that you have to earn love, that you have to achieve, impress, perfect, or perform in order to be worthy. It started early, when you got praise for being a good kid, for getting the grades, for being helpful, for not causing trouble. And you learned, without anyone saying it out loud, that love was something you had to work for, that your value was tied to how much you gave, how little you needed, how agreeable and accommodating you could be. And slowly, the message took root inside of you, that being yourself wasn't quite enough. You had to be more or less or quieter or smarter or nicer or thinner or louder or more successful. And so you kept adjusting. You learned to become whoever the moment required you to be, at home, at school, at work, in relationships. You wore the mask that made people feel most comfortable. You edited your truth so you wouldn't make others uncomfortable. You smiled through pain, laughed when it wasn't funny, said yes when you were breaking inside. And when you finally had a quiet moment alone, you wondered, do they love me, or do they just love what I do for them? But you buried the question because it was too painful to face. Because the truth is, many of us have never really known what it feels like to be loved without conditions. But I need you to hear this. You were never meant to perform for love. Your wholeness, your full, unfiltered self doesn't require a stage. It doesn't require applause. It doesn't need to be voted on or validated or confirmed by the people around you. It simply is. You are already enough, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. And I'm not talking about perfection. I'm talking about the you that exists underneath the roles, the labels, the armor, the you that's still there when everything else is stripped away. You don't need to fix yourself to be worthy of belonging. You don't need to become more palatable, more impressive, more likable. The real you, the one who's messy, complex, brilliant, emotional, evolving, is already worthy. Even when you're anxious, even when you're unsure, even when you've made mistakes. You don't earn love through performance, and you don't lose it through imperfection. The love that requires you to shrink, to hide, to twist yourself into someone else, that's not love. That's approval dressed in manipulation. That's acceptance with strings attached. That's praise with an expiration date. Real love doesn't ask you to trade authenticity for acceptance. It doesn't punish you for being human. And here's the truth that will liberate you if you let it. You don't need their approval to be whole. Their permission is not a prerequisite for your peace. Their validation is not the currency for your worth. You don't need to be chosen by someone else to choose yourself. And the minute you stop seeking wholeness in places that were never meant to offer it, you begin to truly live. Because chasing approval will leave you exhausted. It will keep you locked in a cycle of overthinking and second guessing, where you're constantly trying to measure up to standards that were never yours to begin with.